just laying on my bed sobbing like to a pillow. It has been so chaotic. It's been very challenging. Change, healing is messy, it's chaotic, it's uncomfortable, it's not fun. Hi and welcome back to the channel. This video is for you if you are from the ages of like 28, 29 to 32. I want to talk about in this video a transit you have probably never heard of, but is really massively affecting you right now. And no, it is not Saturn return, although that might be playing a role depending on where Saturn is in your natal chart. But the transit that I'm referring to specifically is Uranus, currently being opposite your Pluto. So I just realized that this transit is happening for me upon looking at my chart and kind of assessing things on a deeper level. I teach you how to do this in my Become an Astrologer course. Those of you that are students already know how to do this and probably do this quite regularly as I advise inside of the course, because I do this myself. I'm constantly looking at what's going on, how is this affecting me, like why am I experiencing such chaos and turmoil in my life right now. And almost always there's a transit happening that I can look to for confirmation of what I'm feeling and experiencing in my everyday life. And for this one specifically, it has been so chaotic. It's been very challenging. I feel like there have been such struggles and such tension put on my own personal transformation and my own personal death and rebirth cycle. There's been power struggles at play, just happening through a lot of chaos and a lot of things just building, coming out of seemingly nowhere, and it just getting kind of like worse and worse. And it's really forcing me to realize the power that I do have over my own internal state and what happens on the external, or at least how I respond to what happens on the external, and what I can do on the internal to regulate myself, to regulate my nervous system. Let's just take a deep breath, because this transit is not for the weak. And realizing that this was happening for me, I also realized like, oh, this is probably what gets blamed on Saturn return a lot of the time. But if you've seen my other videos from me, or if you're in my inner circle membership, you know I talk about all the time that there are so many crucial life-changing transits happening before your Saturn return even starts. And then there are ones that continue after your Saturn return, like I just learned, Uranus being opposite your natal Pluto. So if you have Pluto in late degrees of Scorpio, anywhere from like, I would say 20 degrees of Scorpio to like 5 degrees of Sagittarius even, you're probably feeling this in a lot of ways. Now, it's obviously going to be the most intense when it peaks, just like your Saturn return is the most intense on the exact day that it happens, when it technically peaks. For me, this happened for Uranus opposite Pluto. This happened last week for me when the sun was also there on Uranus too. So a lot of us are feeling this collectively because Uranus is so close to the sun, and the sun is now moving away from Uranus as I'm filming and posting this video, but it's still kind of there. So we're still kind of residually feeling this energy, and whatever the sun touches, it illuminates, it shines on. So all of this is really getting a big amplification right now. It's really blowing up a lot of sudden, unexpected chaos, change, innovation in our life that is probably taking us all by surprise. And it's probably like, why is this happening right now? This is why it's happening right now, because of what the sun and Uranus are doing. Also, Uranus is harmonizing with Saturn right now before Saturn moves into Aries and before it goes over Neptune, which I'll probably do a whole other video on later this week, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, because this is a big one. We haven't had it since the beginning of the 1700s. That's like 300 years. That's 300 years. So this is like a very rare transit, and the fact that it's happening right now with everything else as it is just amplified. I mean, we're also this week having the sun harmonized with Pluto, so there is a lot of harmony coming from these changes. If you've watched my weekly update from this week or for the transits of this week, then you already know that I spoke to that a lot of like, there are challenges, there is tension, there are conflicts, but it is all coming with a positive intention, a positive kind of resolution to it. It's not all bad. And I say this all the time when people ask me about certain transits or placements in the birth chart. I say this in my Become an Astrologer course. Nothing in astrology is bad. It's really just all relative to how you're viewing life and what's going on for you. And it all means something, but it's never so reductive as like whatever this is or whatever this is happening or whatever placement you have is bad. It just means something, right? So right now, the current Uranus is kind of adding tension to my Pluto and your Pluto as well. If you have it, like I said, at late degrees of Scorpio or early degrees of Sagittarius, Uranus in the sky is putting tension on your natal Pluto, which is calling for you to really make changes and innovations as it relates to your power dynamics, and you're embracing your own inner power and kind of rising like the phoenix from the ashes, especially if you have this placement in Scorpio. But it's not bad, right? It's uncomfortable. But ultimately, it will bring about positive rebirth cycles that have needed to happen. And Uranus is putting tension on this part of your chart so that they do happen, right? So that you do grow and evolve and you don't keep repeating the same things from the past. For me personally, this has been bringing up a lot of like residual, deep-rooted subconscious emotions that I didn't realize were there because Uranus is in my 8th house. And the 8th house is really all about, you know, that deep-seated psychological stuff that's intimate, that's vulnerable, that comes deep from within the psyche, right? And asks for us to go to the depths of our psyche in order to look at it and alchemize it into something different, to be reborn into something new from that whole process, right? So, and Uranus is closing out its cycle in Taurus. Now, it is going to go retrograde after it moves into Gemini and go back into Taurus, but we are still getting a glimpse of foreshadowing of what that retrograde is going to bring up for us, and we are getting a foreshadowing of what closing out the cycle of Uranus through Taurus looks like, because this is a really once in a lifetime transit. This isn't going to happen again for you unless you live another 84 years, which for most of us is very rare. Hopefully that helps you to find some peace around it, because it's not going to last forever. It's really only going to last maybe for the next, I would say, 8 to 10 months. And then it will kind of, you know, move on, and we'll have integrated and embodied everything that was coming up and everything that we learned from it, right? Hopefully. So, and for me, I have Uranus natally in my 4th house, and the current Uranus is also harmonizing with my Uranus in the 4th house. So this is really bringing up a lot of changes in terms of not only my like possessions and my material security, because it's opposing my Pluto in the 2nd house, but it's also showing up in my actual physical home and environment, and also with some family dynamics, right? It's promoting this massive change, this massive innovation, and how I have approached life before with these themes from my childhood that were passed down through family dynamics, right? But that no longer really resonate and aren't helpful for where I'm headed or where I'm going. And so that's why all of this is kind of happening right now. And change, healing is messy, it's chaotic, it's uncomfortable, it's not fun. Last night I spent 30 minutes or maybe even more just laying on my bed sobbing like to a pillow. You know, it's not fun, it's not cute, it's not pretty, but it is what is needed to happen in order to really release these themes that are in the deep in the subconscious that have maybe been running our life on autopilot, that we don't want to continue operating from that place, right? So this all is getting brought up so that we alchemize it, like I've said, like we transform it, we move on from it, and we create better things, better home, better ways of making money, better material possessions, better resources, a better relationship with money and resources than what we have had previously. So it really all is happening to promote a needed change, to promote a needed innovation, even though it may feel really rough. Does this resonate with you? Do you have this going on in your chart? You can get your chart from my website, astrologyhumandesign.com. Download the free PDF to see your degrees and see if your Pluto is in late degrees of Scorpio, where Uranus would be opposite it right now. And later this weekend, we're also going to have Mercury join up with Uranus. So those changes, those innovations are going to be really amplified and intensified in terms of our mindset, how we're viewing things, our perspective of the world around us, how we're communicating communicating about them, what we're saying, what we're thinking, right? All kind of mental faculties are going to get this kind of chaotic push this weekend. I mean, there's a lot happening this weekend. If you saw my weekly horoscope update, like, this is a really big time to be stepping into and creating something new for ourselves, even though it is really uncomfortable and not fun to deal with in the moment. In hindsight, we'll be able to see how deeply positive and beneficial it was overall in our lives. Even though it might be triggering, it might even produce a little bit of more trauma in the moment, ultimately it is getting us to where we need to be through the ways that we need to get there, and what needs to be drudged up within the psyche, within the subconscious, within the body, in order to have that new beginning. I've been talking about this, I feel like, in all of my videos. We're really wrapping up an old cycle, an old chapter, and stepping into the new. That's really what 2025 is all about. And endings are painful. Endings are not comfortable in any way, but they make room for the beginning, and they give us more clarity on what we want that beginning and that next chapter that we are headed for, that we are stepping into, to look like. Let me know how this resonated with you in the comments. Let me know if you have Uranus currently opposite your Pluto, or anything else in your chart that you could have in late degree Scorpio or early degree Sagittarius. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you and how this is showing up in your life personally. So let's chat about it in the comments. Like, subscribe, you know the deal. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!